Welcome to FlossTube number 6. If things seem a little stilted this time around, it's because this is about the 4th time I've attempted this video. So I shall try not to remain irritated while I'm trying to talk to you. Every little thing is going wrong. So let's hope this works this time. My name's Christine. I am on Instagram at CMD586. That's cat mother dog 586. So you can find me there. And let's just get started. So let's talk about FlossTube. First off, I wanted to mention Sherry Burkett, who I'm sure you guys already watched. If you don't, you're really missing out. She, like a few others, like the Stash Queen and Katie the Queen of Starts, she has a whole lot of whips. I think last year she did the Year of Starts, and I don't know how many projects she started. I don't think it was every day, but she has a whole lot of whips, and she did a two-part whip parade. And the second part was like 3 times as long as the first part. And I watched her on 1.5 speed, which I don't feel bad about because it was her idea. I believe it was her idea. I think I was not aware of this this wonderful fast forward your way through FlossTube thing until Sherry mentioned it, I think, and I finally tried it out, and you know, I thought it was going to be like bad. I thought it would be like watching something on fast forward where you see lines or things don't look right or things sound funny or whatever, but it's not. If you can watch, if you're not already aware, you can watch FlossTube videos on 1.25 speed and 1.5 speed. You can even watch them on 2 times. I tried the 2 times speed though, and people become understandable at that point. But at 1.25 and 1.5 speed, they just, you know, kind of sound like they're on cocaine, not Coca-Cola. You know, everybody moves a little bit faster and talks a little bit faster, but for the most part, you know, you can still understand them perfectly well, and if you're paying attention, I mean, if you're looking down at your stitching, maybe not, but if you're paying attention, you can still see their whips perfectly fine and that sort of thing. But I watched myself, and yes, I look like I'm on drugs, so I just ask that if you, and on behalf of all of us, I ask that if you choose to try out this 1.25 or 1.5 speed thing to help yourself catch up on FlossTube, just remember that you are on 1.25 and 1.5 speed, and we're not all on drugs. So, all right, so next, Jimmy FlossTube. Jimmy FlossTube has a new video out. He's interviewing another wonderful stitcher from his area, and it's hilarious. And I'm a bad person because I laughed through the whole thing, and I felt, and it's, you know, dirty, and it's insensitive, and he's the Cards Against Humanity of cross-stitch, well, he doesn't even do cross-stitch, so I don't know what he is. Of cross-stitch husbands, I guess. He's only for terrible people, and evidently there are a lot of us around there because, you know, he's selling his t-shirts like crazy, and we're all watching him. Many of us, not all of you, maybe some of you are not into that. Maybe some of you are better than I am, better people than I am, but I laughed my little butt off watching Jimmy FlossTube. So if you haven't seen his 4th video, and you're not super, well, you don't have to be easily offended to be offended by this video, but, you know, if you're in the mood for a little dirty, insensitive humor, head on over and watch Jimmy FlossTube. I'm gonna stop there. All right. And my last shout out this time will be to Mary Rose at Stitch Bliss Corner. I love Mary Rose. My husband loves Mary Rose. He doesn't watch her, but because he sits off in his own little corner and does his movie work while I do my stitching and watch whatever I'm gonna watch, and he doesn't face the television on purpose, but he hears Mary Rose, and he's like, oh, that's that lady who talks about all the non-cross-stitching stuff. Well, she talks about a lot of things, like a lot of historical things and cultural, multicultural things. She talks about stitching from different parts of the world. She talks about painting and poetry and, historical figures and things like that. And she does bring it back to stitching, regardless of what my husband says. He's not paying enough attention. She does bring it all back to stitching, and it's fascinating. And I don't know what she did or does or did. I think she's retired, but I don't know what she did for a living. But she's a born educator, or maybe like she should be a historical biographer or something. But she really has a knack for speaking with heart and compassion about mostly historical figures, but in some cases present day people. In a way that really brings them to life for us. She's something special in the FlossTube world. If you haven't watched her, if you're not watching her, you should go watch her. And she's really worth listening to. And she has some beautiful stitching to show as well. But just listening to her and learning from her, she's really something special. And her last two videos, the reason I mention her is because her last two videos, well, I haven't seen her latest video. I think her very latest video is about Portuguese stitching, and I just spotted it this morning, and I haven't gotten around to watching it. But her previous two videos, her third video back is about Martina Rosenberg. I believe that's her last name, the Martina who, unless I have her mixed up with a different Martina, I think it's Martina Rosenberg, right? Who does the chatelaine. She has a video about her and her designs, and then her second to last video, she talks about Marilyn Livett Imblum of Lavender and Lace, who is the mother of Nora Corbett, and who died a few years ago, but who made just an enormous contribution to cross stitch as we know it now, way back in the 90s when I was doing a fair amount of stitching. The internet was not what it is today, and to my knowledge, we had beautiful patterns. We had, not to discount, anybody before her, but, to what I was aware of at that time was Teresa Wensler and Paula Vaughn, and beyond that, simple stuff like, nothing exciting beyond that. Simple things in magazines and just stuff that, didn't really appeal that greatly to me. And then I discovered Marilyn, and I was like, wow, and to my knowledge at that time, there was nobody else out there like her. And certainly now you can find a lot, obviously her daughter, Nora, and, but more than that. There's now quite a few options for that style of. I think you can see like her influence on Joan Elliott and things like that. But anyway, I won't keep talking about it because I don't know very much, and I'm not that articulate on these things. But just go watch Mary Rose at Stitch Bliss Corner, because she's got plenty to teach us all, and I hope she keeps making videos, because I'll just keep watching. All right, so that's enough about FlossTube. Onto the stuff I bought. I had really good intentions of not purchasing anything to speak of, and then Bendy Stitchy. She mentioned Donut Stitch, and it's not like I didn't know about Donut Stitch before, but for whatever reason, I had been successfully resisting buying Donut Stitch patterns, and Bendy Stitchy mentioned the Donut Stitch's latest release, Alice in Wonderland, which, I didn't actually think I was that big of a fan of Alice in Wonderland. It's been years since I read the book. I should probably read the book again. Obviously, everybody's familiar with the story, but it turns out now that I have the Donut Stitch Alice in Wonderland pattern, I have according to my cross stitching, I'm a bigger fan of Alice in Wonderland than I realized. So we'll talk more about that later. But I did buy not only the Alice in Wonderland pattern after Bendy Stitching mentioned it, but I also bought the Snow White pattern because they were bundled together and it was only a few dollars more. And apparently the Donut Stitch lady is a huge fan of DMC 3808, at least, unless it's just coincidence. These two patterns call for between them, and I presume that the Donut Stitch designer intends for you to stitch them on 14 count in her estimate, but they call for 45 skeins of 3808 between the two of them, 25 skeins in the Alice in Wonderland pattern alone. So now, you know, they don't call for a whole lot of colors. I mean, there's maybe 20 colors or something, which isn't a lot, you know, compared to many things. It isn't a lot, which is great because there's no confetti in these patterns, so it makes them relatively easy. But before I go any further, let me show you a picture of the Donut Stitch patterns I got. First, I will show you the Alice in Wonderland one, and then next I will show you the Snow White one. And none of this may match up to what I just said, but you know enough about Alice in Wonderland and Snow White to tell the difference. So anyway. I'm not sure how that showing one picture right after the other is going to work out. It may look rather silly, but that's okay, whatever. They call for a bunch of 3808, 45 skeins. And I was like, that's ridiculous, right? To buy 45 skeins of one thread. Surely there's a better way to go about that. So I did the math, I added up, and I found a cone of 3808, and I for $20 including shipping. Look at that. Look how gorgeous and shiny and beautiful that is. And that's what it looks like. Hello. There is about, I did the math, and there's about 54 skeins on this 100 gram cone for $20, which is a big, it's a big savings, right? Over, with current prices, it's a pretty good savings to buy it this way, $20. Right now, with my local tax, if I buy, and I'm in Alaska, bear in mind, if I buy skeins at Joann's with tax, it costs me 65 cents a skein. So this is a savings, and there's more here than I need. And it'll last me a good long time. And additionally, I'm doing the pattern. I already started it. Because I have to start everything. I'm doing the pattern on, as opposed to a 14 count, which I probably was never going to use that. But instead of the usual 2/2, I decided to save as much floss as I could because this is the only cone I bought, and there's 19 or so other colors in the pattern, all of which call for multiple skeins of everything. So this just happens to be the worst offender. But I decided to do it on 25 count, 1/1. It'll be small, it'll be beautiful, and I think it's gonna, because I'm doing it not only 1/1, which that cuts the thread in half, right? As opposed to 2/2. But also because it's a higher count, instead of 14 count, I'm doing it on 25 count, 1/1. It cuts it even more. So I'm thinking I'll use about, and not to mention I'm a fairly frugal stitcher. I'm thinking it will take me about a third. If I do both the patterns, I'm thinking that I might get away with about 15 skeins worth instead of 45, which would be great. But yeah, I have a cone. So if you haven't seen the 100 gram cones, this is what they look like. I don't know that they're available for all colors of DMC. 123 Stitch has some of these. You can find them on Amazon. I got this one off of eBay. And as I said, including shipping, $20. So, really good price. So, but in case you're wondering, this is a cone. This is a 500 gram cone. This is my cone of DMC 310, which I've spoken of lovingly before. Love this thing. This is 500 grams. This is 100 grams. This is 54 skeins. This is 270 skeins. Even considering that I use 310 with almost every project we do, right? Almost every project we do calls for some 310. I'm guessing that when I die, there will still be some 310 in my house. Have you seen another shout out? Caroline of Off the Grid Needle Arts. She talks about how in her amongst her friends she is known as the 310 girl, and I wish I could be known as the 310 girl. I have enough 310 to be known as the 310 girl, but I don't have anybody in my real life who, except possibly my husband, if he's been paying attention. He did buy it for me, but I don't think he knows what 310 means. He's the only one in my life who would know what this was. Nobody else in my life would know enough to call me the 310 girl. They wouldn't know that this is how much thread this really is, and how much, how useful it is. This one cost me less than $50. So, this is really economical. I mean, I would suggest everybody go out and get themselves a giant cone of 310, because if I got one this size, I would use it up. I will never use up this one. I don't think I'll ever use. I was super happy if I live long enough and stitch enough to use up 270 skeins of DMC 310. It's probably not going to happen, but I would use up this if it was 310. So I'm real happy to have. That's why I got the giant one, because endless amounts of black. I can stitch all black. Okay, let's see. Oh, I did get, I do have on the way the pattern only for Halloween at Hawk Run Hollow. I'm not planning to get the fabric and the threads for it until Christmas, but I figured I might as well get the pattern, and then when it comes time to order the threads, at least I have something in front of me that tells me exactly what I need. So that's on the way. I didn't get it. I'll show it when it gets here. But I did get I won another little giveaway. And this is a Just Nan. I don't know that I knew what it was called. It's a store model. I want to say Pamela Hoover McIntosh. Anyway, many of you probably already know who she is. She has a Facebook group for Stitcher's Paradise. It's a brick and mortar, or was a brick and mortar. She's selling off the stock. I don't know whether the brick and mortar still exists at all or not. But anyway, she has a very good Facebook page where she posts all the time. Excellent prices where she's selling the stock. And she did a giveaway for one of the store models. And I happened to win it. I entered it on a whim and kind of thought better of it after I entered it. But, I'm glad I got it. I will hang it on my wall. The reason I thought better of it was because, it's a model stitch. I mean, it's a store model. So maybe that's probably a little bit different than, the model that, the designer's model. But I was worried about hanging it on my wall because I thought it would be I thought it would be better than what I can do. But surprisingly, I look at this and it's not perfect. Which it's beautiful. The person who stitched this should be absolutely proud of it, and I can't necessarily do better than this. but I can do as good as this. This is not, it's not absolutely perfect. There is some uneven stitching. There is some, you know, odd tension here and there. I can do something just as good as this. So I was like, should I hang that on my wall? Is it going to be deceptive in some way? You know, like showing off something that I'm not capable of doing, etc. And I figured at the worst case scenario that if I ever decided I wanted to stitch this pattern, you know, when I was kitting up Peacock Majesty, there, I said it right, Peacock Majesty, I struggled to find and I didn't find the center pin to put it, or bead to go at the top. And I thought, well, you know, worst case, if I ever want to do this pattern, I have the swan pin. But now that I have this all, I know I won't, not that I won't do it. I might very well do it, but I would never take this off and, you know, cannibalize it for my own uses. But yeah, no, I'm going to hang this on my wall, and it's going to be beautiful stitching from someone else. I wish it said something on the back, like who stitched it or whatever, but it does not. It's just taped to this. This too looks about like the quality of my finishing. You know, they just wrapped it around. I don't think it's a sticky board. I think it's just it might be a sticky board. But they just wrapped it around a mat board. I think it is actually a sticky board. They just wrapped it around a mat board and, you know, and went with it, stuck it up on the wall somewhere. And that's about what I do. So it fits right in. Okay, so that's it for the stuff I got. So I want to show my whips. Last time, in my last video, I talked about how I really felt I needed to put in some good time on Shores of Hawkhorn Holland, and I'm really happy to say that I did. I put in a solid week on that sucker, and I finished the third block. I was kind of surprised by how long it took me, but once I got started on it, right after that video I got it out, I was like, you know, I just spent all this time talking about how I needed to work on it, and so I got it out. I was like, I'm just gonna make myself put in 100 stitches, and if I'm not feeling it, then I'll put it away, but I'm gonna get it out and do it, darn it. And to my surprise, I got pretty into it, and there it is. There is, okay, well, here's the whole thing, but there is, I can't see, so hopefully you're seeing all right. There is the finished block. Oh, I should show you. I am all screwed up since I tried to do this video so many times. Here's a picture of what it looked like before. And here's what it looks like now. So there's a lot of water and there's a lot of white. And I learned something from this. I learned that I think when I have lots of the same color like this, I thought that the best thing for me would be to break it up, like stitch a little of the white, stitch a little of another color, stitch a little white, stitch another color. But I think what I have determined is that for me, because what I did when I went back to this is I went around and I stitched all the details and all the colors except the strip of green grass, which is not that big of a deal, and all of the water, and the rest of the white house. I did all the details. And so I basically, you know, just colored it in afterwards. Now, unfortunately, I did make a mistake, which I didn't discover until I posted a picture of it on Instagram. And then I looked and I said, you know, that right there doesn't look quite right to me. It was, you know, right in here. And I was like, that's not right. There's something wrong with the window right there. I had kind of missed this last leaf, and there was like one gold window piece, and I'd filled it in with white, and it was obvious. It was like, you know, why is there like a third of a window there? So I had to rip out, well, technically I had to rip out 6 stitches and replace them, 6 white stitches and replace them with colored stitches. And But, you know, it's hard to rip out stitches in the middle of solid stitching. And I ended up ripping out only 8 stitches to replace them with 6, which I was pretty pleased with. Oh, and, but anyway, filling them in, I think is, if you're going to be stuck working with boring, you know, endless amounts of the same color anyway, you might as well at least make it easy. So that was what I had done with my Bumble, my Dimensions Rudolph Ornament Bumble. I had done everything except the white and then just filled it in super easy. Well, that was so successful that I decided to go with that when I picked this one back up, and I did all the details. It was just super fun and brought all the colors out, and I was like, wow, this looks really good. And then I just filled it in. And of course I made a mistake because, you know, I wasn't counting anymore because I was just filling in and I had missed one little detail. And I don't think I missed any more. I think I just missed the one. But if I did, I'll never know. But it was, you know, it was boring, but it was just easier. You know, I just sit there and kept going and going and going. And I figure if it's going to be boring anyway, I might as well make it easy. And then maybe I can just, you know, when I'm in the mood. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that from now on. Also, the dog almost died over this stupid thing. I have a beagle, and she is a pain in the rear, and she's super smart, and she has trained us to where she will grab little things that she knows she's not supposed to have, usually things like receipts or napkins, or one of her things that she likes to grab because they're always floating around here is the little black and gold tabs, the wrappings on DMC. She'll grab those and she'll be like, look at me, I got something you don't want me to have. And a lot of times we won't be able to tell what it is, but we think maybe it'll be dangerous for her or something like that. So we give her a treat to get it back. And evidently she didn't see something that like that. So she got up on my table, which she doesn't do. I mean, not climbed up, but put her nose up. And she grabbed probably the first thing she could reach. And I'm not super careful because usually this is not a problem. She grabbed I had it in a little tiny plastic baggie. I keep a lot of my threads. I've discovered these little Darris bags, super inexpensive. And you just shove them in there as opposed to wrapping them around, winding them around bobbins. This is what I've started doing recently. I had a bag like this, full of NPIs, and she grabbed that bag and she was chewing on it, and I gave her a treat for it, and I was horrified, and she was horrified. I don't hit my dog, but she knew she was in deep doo-doo, and I had that little brat trembling in the corner because I was yelling at her and saying, you know, using the mean mommy tone of voice that doesn't come out very often with her, because she's so darling. And like my kid, my 16-year-old was like, you're being too hard on the dog. I'm like, I'm not killing her. I'm not beating her. I'm just yelling. And if next time she's going to go grab something off of my table, she remembers me yelling at her and her cowering and trembling in the corner because mommy was so terrifying, she might not do it again, and that would be fine with me. So anyway, fortunately, she didn't kill the thread. It got a little damp, but it held up. Like, it was still pretty usable. I mean, this stuff's kind of tough because, you know, an animal gets some DMC in their mouth and I'm chucking it. Maybe I don't have to, but I think I have to. And, but the NPIs, I was like, I need that. And it was a color I was using right now. It was the watercolor. And she didn't do any harm to it. So I got it back. And she didn't die. So that was good. Anyway, so that's my amusing now story, but not amusing at the time. All right, so what else did I work on? Oh, the second thing I worked on was my Wizard of Oz balloon, which I showed you last time, and here's a picture of where I think it was when I showed it to you last. So this is an interesting thing. I'm learning another lesson on this one. A couple of lessons. We all know about dye lot issues with DMC, about using old thread and new thread and dye lot issues. So, and I've experienced it. So this is not, you know, something I'm ignorant of. I also talked about how this fabric that I'm using is Witchelt, I believe, and it's a little rougher. I actually really enjoy the fabric. I think it looks nice. It's easy to work on. But it tears up the DMC, and now I know. Last time I had asked the question whether I should blame DMC for this circumstance because I didn't remember this happening when years and years ago when I used Witchelt fabric and DMC together. I didn't remember it happening, and indeed I've confirmed to my satisfaction that it is DMC's fault, and DMC has changed. Not just dye lot issues, which are completely understandable, but so here's what happened. I was using a new skein of thread, and I had an old skein on a bobbin, and I looked at those skeins under my bright magnified light, and I could not see a difference between them. So I decided to go ahead and use when I happened to run out of the new skein, I went ahead and used what I had I had an old skein left, quite a bit of an old skein left, and rather than going out and buying another new skein, and I just looked at it and I couldn't tell a difference under my bright light and my magnifier, and I thought, they look the same. I'm gonna just use it. And I don't know if you can tell in here. I have pictures on Instagram. Oh, I think you can tell. I have pictures on Instagram. You can tell, like there's a line, and you can see right around here where I switched to the old skein, and the color's different. And okay, my fault, you know. And I'm not angry about that. But the other thing is, and I don't know if you can tell here on here or not. I think you can. This old skein, as I was using it, I was able to use long strands, and the fabric, this rougher fabric, did not rip up my old DMC. It rips up the new DMC. So DMC, I've heard people speculate about this, and I, you know, never knew whether it was real or not, but old DMC was better quality in terms of durability, at least. And maybe durability isn't everything, but old DMC was much more durable than new DMC because my stitching looks a heck of a lot better with the old DMC than it does with the new DMC. So, but I'm not ripping anything out. I am just leaving it all. It's going to be a little imperfect, and that's going to be fine. It's, you know, nobody's going to care. It's going to hang on my wall. It's going to look pretty. Anybody in my real life who looks at it is going to, you know, not going to know the difference. And, but I will not stitch on this fabric again. I don't fault the fabric. I really actually like this fabric. I'm going to finish this project on this fabric, and that's going to be it for this fabric ever. Because, you know, I can't really get away from DMC, and I would imagine that something like silk isn't going to be any better. And I know a lot of the hand-dyed fabrics of flosses are based in DMC. I doubt that like Anchor or anything else is better. This is probably just the state of the industry at this point that you know, with the regulations and manufacturing and stuff that they just can't or make it better than they do now, economically or with regulations or whatever. I don't know, but I would be surprised if there's other floss out there that holds up to this fabric when DMC won't. Nevertheless, it pisses me off that that old DMC looked great on this fabric and new DMC gets torn up. So it still looks fine, but I won't use it again because my stitching, the new DMC, it gets all fuzzy and stuff on this fabric, and it looks okay, but it looks like I'm stitching with wool or something because it gets all fuzzy. And of course you have to use shorter strands because as it's getting fuzzy, it's getting frayed, and eventually it breaks. It breaks on you, and then you know, and then you have to mess around trying to you know, take out a few stitches and feed it under, and you know, so when you get surprised by that. So we've all been there. So anyway, That is, this is by the Pixel Parade on Etsy, if you don't recall, or you didn't watch my last video. And there's gonna be a Wizard of Oz down here. So I made a lot of progress, but then my cone arrived. I almost got away without starting something new, but on Friday, my cone arrived. And so I had to start. I had to start Alice in Wonderland by Donut Stitch. And before I show you my Alice in Wonderland by Donut Stitch, I want to show you my other Alice in Wonderlands. Well, two of them you've sort of already seen. My first, in my very first video, I showed you this as a finish. This is, did I say that Wizard of Oz was by the Pixel Parade? It's not the Pixel Parade. It's the Elfin Forest. Sorry, I have Pixel Parade on my mind. I may or may have not even have said that. But I have the Pixel Parade on my mind because this pattern, Wonderland, is from a designer called the Pixel Parade on Etsy. And she has several Disney mini samplers like this that are just, you know, all very similar to this and just neat. So that's one, that's my only finished Alice in Wonderland pattern. Man, I love that. Look at those colors. And then I have, well, now 3 whips now that I have the Donut Stitch. But then the other one that you saw recently that I'm not even going to show you because you saw it with the last video, but just to remind you, I'll just show you a picture of the pattern. I have my Le Manège d'Alice that I'm working on. That I haven't done any since last you saw it, but I'm working in this area here. So there's my second Alice in Wonderland pattern. And then I am also doing maybe someday, but I'm doing the first 6 Alice in Wonderland characters that Brooke Nolan of Brooks Books released. I'm doing them all on the same fabric, 28 count. This is 28 count Cashel. It's for sure Cashel, not even weave. By Zweigart. Let's see. Can I get this right side up at least? There we go. So I'm doing the first 6 of them. Now, I would really like to know what this fabric is. It's 28 count. It's definitely Zweigart because it has that orange thing. But, so as you can see, I've got the bulk of the borders done. And then I have the Mad Hatter finished. And I'm doing all 6 of them on this same fabric. I would really like to know, if anybody has any idea, I'd really like to know what this fabric is. That's a pretty good representation of the color. It's maybe a little less purpley than it looks like on, that's pretty good. So it's a really solid, like, medium blue. It is not Millennium Blue. See, this is Millennium Blue, and this is something else. It's not Blue Spruce. It's just a very blue. And it came unlabeled. I got it off of eBay. It's definitely Zweigart though, and I can't find this color. And this is a gorgeous blue. I guess I have a thing for blues, but I want more of this. I love Millennium Blue. I think it's my favorite, but I would really like to have more of this if I could find it, especially if I do maybe intend to do the other 6 of her Alice characters. It would be great. I would really kind of hate to do these 6 on this fabric and these 6 on, on Millennium or Spruce or something, as I would, if I'm going to do the other 6, I would really want to find this same fabric and do them. But I don't know what the color is, and I can't find it. So if anybody has any suggestions about what that color is, even if it's discontinued, I could probably find some on eBay or something. I'm at a loss because I haven't seen it anywhere except for that one eBay purchase. And as far as I know, nobody else does that orange selvage, right? That means it's Zweigart, I think, unless somebody else is copying them. I'm pretty sure it's Zweigart, and it feels like Zweigart. So I'm pretty sure that's the case. Okay, so I think I showed you all of my Alice in Wonderland things except for the Donut Stitch. So now I have decided to do the donut stitches, even though it's a little bit boring. I'm convinced that it'll be faster. I've decided to do all of the donut stitch since they use such large amounts of just relatively few colors. I've decided to do them all with one color at a time. For the most part, working from the most stitches in a color to the least stitches in a color. However, after I get done with my 3808 on this Alice in Wonderland, the next one is white, and I'm not going to do the white until probably the end because this is I'm stitching on white, and white on white is no fun. So I'm gonna, and there's like 5,000 stitches or something of white on this thing. There's almost 12,000 or 11 something thousand stitches of 3808 on this, but yeah, I'm not gonna do the white next. I'm gonna wait till I get at least, if not all of it, the rest of it, but the bulk of it filled in so that the white on white won't be so such a pain. So I put in Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on this. I got my, let's get it going the right way, right? Yeah. I got my cone of 3808. And this is just a 25 count Lugana. And it's a huge piece of fabric. I haven't cut it down yet. I will at some point, but you know, laziness. So that represents the bottom left-hand corner page and the page above that. This is a 12-page pattern. So I have done all of the 3808 on 2 of the 12 pages. And I love the way it looks. And it comes together pretty fast, and it's pretty easy to stitch this way. And the 3808 is throughout the pattern. So it's going to be pretty easy, I think, as boring as it might get. I think it's going to be pretty easy to stitch it in this manner. So I'm planning, unless it just starts to drive me crazy, which, you know, no promises, because it might. I'm planning to do all of the 3808 before I move on to any other color. We'll see. We'll see if I have the willpower to do that. And, you know, there's no rules, so I can do whatever I want. So, all right. So, the last thing I want to talk about, well, usually what I call stuff I gotta have, and I do feel that way, but right now I'm really trying to, there's a couple things on my list, like, you know, I gotta get the Halloween at Hawkhorn Hollow, and I really still want that Joan Elliott Time Traveler, but I'm really trying to not acquire so many new projects for a little while. But if you are not yet aware of Fox and Jackal Stitches, it is Jay at Mortuary Stitches. It is her son and her daughter-in-law. They're designing, and you know, they are, it's just, I've said it before, but it's really exciting to see them. They are brand new to cross-stitching. They're both very artistic people, and at least it's Chris and Kay. Chris is the man and Kay is his wife, and they are Jay at Mortuary Stitches' son and daughter-in-law. And they got inspired by her to you know, take up cross-stitching and to take up designing, and they're really kind, fun people, and they put out a video a couple of days ago or something, and it was really funny too. Really funny. They are sweet people. I mean, their heart and their intelligence just shines through in their videos, and they're a real pleasure to watch. And they have an Etsy shop now. When I last spoke about them, I think I had said that their patterns were free, and they do still have several free patterns available on their website, but they have an Etsy shop, and they have put out a couple of patterns recently that are really, like, they're really, I liked Chris's first pattern, well, not his first pattern, but one of his first patterns was a Midnight Meeting that I downloaded and donated a few dollars to him for. And I liked it quite a bit, and I still have it in my head that I'm going to do that one of these days. But he has also just very recently, he put out a Halloween sampler, which he shows on his, I think he calls it the Pumpkin Queen sampler. So, there's pumpkins, which, that's great, right? I love pumpkins. And, but I'm really impressed with this design. And then he put out another one. His very latest one is it's a squirrel, and he's sitting on a spool of thread, and squirrels aren't my thing. This pattern isn't necessarily my thing, but it's a really nice looking pattern. I mean, it has a great deal of appeal. Not to me personally. I'm just squirrels, squirrels aren't my thing, but there are a lot of people's things, and it really actually looks like a very attractive pattern. It's hard to believe that these folks have just begun this, because they're really making a go at it, and I'm really impressed in watching them improve by learn a lot and improve by leaps and bounds, and I'm super excited to see whatever else they bring out. But the Halloween pattern, and let me show you a picture of it now. There is, and it's a big pattern, and I need another big pattern, like I need another hole in my head. And I'm not going to buy it right away. I'm going to wait till either I can't resist, which is more likely, or until I feel good about purchasing it, and till I think it's actually, maybe when I've had some couple of big finishes, then then I might get that one. Oh, excuse me. Not enough caffeine in the world today. So anyway, that's all I had to say. And thank you for joining me again. And I will be back in a couple of weeks. Have a good day. Bye-bye.